In this video, we're going to explore the main window in Logic. We're going to take a look at the center section, which is called the workspace, this area, which is called the track headers. Then we'll go over these 7 tabs in the control bar in the top left corner. We're going to start by looking at the workspace. Here's where you get to see all of your tracks horizontally laid out in a timeline fashion. Tracks are individual lanes where sound lives for your project. Audio tracks contain audio regions. Audio regions are rectangular objects that can be freely edited. For example, this selected track, called Dubbeat 19, is an audio region. And these regions are associated with the corresponding audio files on the hard drive. Software instrument tracks, like these 3 here, contain MIDI regions. MIDI regions are rectangular objects that contain MIDI events, which can be individual notes or controller messages that control a software instrument in Logic. We'll get into software instrument tracks more later. Zooming horizontally and vertically in our tracks can be managed with zooming controls in the upper right area over here. This slider gives you control of your zoom vertically, and this slider gives you control of your zoom horizontally. You can also use keyboard commands for your zooming. Apple left and right controls your horizontal zooming, and Apple up and down controls your vertical zooming. Now let's take a look at the track header section. This is the track header for this track. You can select any track simply by clicking. You can select multiple tracks by holding Shift and clicking. To deselect a group of tracks, simply click another track. I'm going to adjust the vertical zooming, Apple up. There we go. Now we can see all the volume controls. Now let's turn our attention to the individual components within the track header. We'll start by looking at the track icon. By right-clicking this icon, we open up a new window with different icons to choose to represent this track. This first track is a drum beat, so for fun, let's just pick a drum icon. And now you see a red drum kit in front of that track. Next, we're going to look at M, which is for mute. If you hit play, this is a drum track, and I'll hit mute. The drums are now off. I'll hit M again, and now the drums are back. Mute. Now back in. Okay, stop. Hit return and go back to the beginning of the track. Next, we're going to look at the S, which stands for solo. Solo cuts all the other tracks except for the one that you're listening to. Let's hit play. Now we're only hearing Ghostly Dubbeat. You can solo more than one track. Let's add the bass to the solo. Now let's turn off Ghostly Dubbeat. Now we only hear the bass. Okay, stop. Hit return and go back to the beginning of the track. The R is for record. We're going to get into record later. The I stands for input monitoring, and it's closely related to record, and we'll go over both of these when we get to that section. Next, we're going to look at the volume slider for the tracks. So if I hit play, click the slider, and it gives me a number. I want to remember it was 13.2 before I change it. I'm going to start turning it up, and you're going to hear the Ghostly Dubbeat get a lot louder. And now I'm going to bring it back down to negative 13.2 where we started. This is where you adjust the volume for the individual tracks. Let's say I want to turn up Satin Soul Bass. I'm going to turn it up. Now you hear it a lot louder. Bring it back. Stop. Hit return and back to the front of the track. And the last thing we're going to look at is the panning. The panning changes where the sound is coming from in your spatial imaging. This is where you change whether the signal is going more to the left or to the right speaker. Let's solo Ghostly Dubbeat and play around to explain this better. I'm going to pan this to the left. As you can see, it puts all the sound into the left speaker. Now let's pan this to the right. Now everything is in the right speaker. A shortcut to put this back in the middle is to hit Option and then click, and it puts it right back into the center. If I put it slightly to the left, there's still sound coming out of the right speaker, giving you the image that is still in front of you but slightly to the left. Now let's switch it to slightly right. And option click, back in the middle. And unsolo, and stop. Okay, let's turn our attention to these 7 tabs up in the top left corner. We're going to start by looking at the Quick Help tab. When you click the tab, it opens up a box. Now while this box is up, whatever you put the pointer over, it tells you what it does. For example, if we put this pointer over the rewind button, it tells you what it does. Fast forward, stop, play, all the information is there. So if you forget what a button does on Logic, you can put the Quick Help up and it'll remind you what it does. Let's look at a few more functions that we've already gone over. In the LCD, we look at the beats position, the tempo, key signature, here's the time signature, and all the information is there. I'm going to leave this on the top right corner for the rest of the tutorial, and as we go through it, if you want to look up there and see what it says, you can. So the next thing we're going to look at is a scissor-looking tab, which is the editor. And if you look at the Quick Help tab, it says you can access the editor for audio tracks, audio files, drummer, piano roll, and so on. So when you click it, you see an editor show up on the bottom below the workspace. Another way to get to the editor is to double-click a region, be it MIDI or audio. Whatever's been clicked, the editor for that file will show up on the bottom. And if you look at the control bar, the editor tab is now highlighted. Let's say we wanted to edit the Satin Soul bass. You double-click it, and now it shows up in the editor window. Here's a quick look at the Carbonation beat as well. Now let's open up a MIDI track. We'll double-click the string track. This track is a software instrument, and if you click anywhere on this keyboard, it'll play a note on that synthesizer. And you can see that I'm actually playing the keyboard with the mouse. And if you look at that yellow rectangular object, that's the MIDI information. If I click it, it plays the note that's been recorded. I'm going to put the playhead just in front of it, and I'm going to solo this track. And if you look at it, you can see it's actually not on the downbeat. I'm going to move it forward just a little bit. I could put it on the downbeat if I wanted, but I'm choosing to have this a little bit laid back. Next, we're going to look at the mixer. We're going to spend a lot of time on the mixer, so we're not going to spend much time right now looking at it. Right now, I just want you to know that it's there. You can move it up and down if you see the symbol where the 2 arrows. You can move it up and down. I'm going to put it back down and leave it right there and move on. So the next thing we want to look at is the smart controls. And if you look at the Quick Help box, it says it's where you can quickly modify the sound of the current patch without having to edit individual track strips or plugins. Currently, I don't have any plugins on these tracks right now, but we'll look at the library next, and that is a way to put plugins on a track. So if we put the pointer over the library and read what the Quick Help says, it says it loads patches and presets for the selected channel strip or plugin type. A plugin is something that modifies the sound in real time that you're working on. It can be an equalizer, compressor, phaser, reverb, echo. We're going to spend a lot of time with plugins, especially in AP2, but for now we're just going to touch it a little bit. But for a quick demonstration of the library and plugins, I'm going to bring the playhead back to 9. We're going to take a listen to Dub Chord Layers. Let's solo it and hit play. And while it's playing, I'm going to take a look at a couple of these preset patches that are in the library. So for example, if you had a kick drum, you could put these preset EQs and compressions on it. To come out, you just click the name and it moves you back a branch. Here's some presets for voice. Here's some performance patches, which are basic effects that you would put on just about anything. Click back, and Studio Instruments. Well, I see keyboards, and this is a keyboard, so let's open that. This is a synthesizer, so now it's added effects, and if you look at the smart controls, there's now something down there that we can mess with. Okay, that's a lot of echo. We could turn that down. Gonna turn the ambience down a bit too, and even the reverb a little bit. If you don't know what I'm doing with these, it doesn't matter. We're gonna get into this a lot more later. Okay, for equalizer, I'm gonna turn the mid up pretty high so I can find a frequency that I like. Alright, right about there is about the frequency I'm trying to find. Now I'll bring the mid down again. Okay, now I'm going to mess with the low cut a little bit. What a low cut does is get rid of the low end. So the higher you bring this, the less low end there is. Seems we've run out of track. I'm going to return back to bar 9 and start again. Okay, that's a little too high for the low cut. I want that low mid, so I'm going to stay right about there. Okay, I like this effect. I want to see what it does in the track. So that is the smart controls and the library. Close each of those, and next we're going to look at the inspector. As you can see, the inspector also opens up on the left, and it shows you everything that is on that selected track. Here I'll select a few different tracks, and you can see that it changes every time to show you what is on that selected track. Let's look back at the dub chord layers. This is the track that we used the library to put a preset effect on. Now we can see that it put a compressor, an EQ, and an echo on this track. It also put a few sends to reverbs. If you don't know what this means, it doesn't matter yet. We're going to get pretty deep into this inspector tab while we're going through the mixer section. This is all the deeper I'm going to get for now. And last of all, let's look at the tab called the toolbar. As you can see, it opened up a new bar full of all of these editing features. We'll be going through all of these features very thoroughly in the near future. For now, I just want you to know what this tab opens up. So for a review, let's look at these 7 tabs one more time. These 3 tabs open up on the bottom: the editor, mixer, and smart controls. As you can see, only one can be open at a time. To close it, just click on the one that is currently selected. This is the library and the inspector. Both of these open on the left side. You can have both open at the same time, or just one if you want. To get rid of the window, just deselect its tab. And the quick help. This is very nice, especially when you have forgotten what something does. Just put your mouse pointer over the button that you've forgotten, and all the information is there for you. While you're first learning this program, I strongly suggest that you use the quick help often. And that concludes everything for this video.